You're listening to Modern Day Mirror, a podcast where storytelling meets spiritual reflection. I'm your guide, Cecilia, here to hold space for your stories and the unseen messages they carry. Once a story is spoken, I tune into your spirit team and offer the messages they most want you to hear. Because your story isn't just a memory, it's a mirror. A mirror for where you've been, what you've carried, and what is ready to shift. This space is for the curious, the ones sensing there's more beneath the surface. Welcome in. Hi, everyone. It is so great to be back with you. I know it's been a few months since I last recorded a podcast, and I could not even begin to tell you about everything that's transpired. But I guess the most significant thing is that my spiritual journey continues to evolve, as do my plans for this podcast. We are definitely building the plane as we're flying it here. So thank you all for being along for the ride. As my faith has continued to deepen, it's been interesting to note all of the ways that it's impacted my life. And I'm continually grateful for all of my elders who have laid the foundation for my faith to grow. Among them was my grandfather. Today is actually the anniversary of his passing, and I felt called to share his eulogy with you. I remember when he first asked me to write it. It was actually several years before he eventually passed, and I felt so inadequate. It felt like such a big responsibility, and I didn't know how equipped I was to be able to complete it. My grandfather was such a special man, and I know everybody says that about their own loved ones, but that doesn't make it any less true. I just want to thank you in advance for allowing me to share his story with you and help celebrate his wonderfully full life. And as an added bonus, it's interesting to be able to reflect back on that period, and in the eulogy itself, you'll hear a little bit about the ways my intuition was already showing up and supporting me, even though I wasn't aware of it. Great man, kind man, family man. While all of these statements ring true about Alfred Lujan, none could ever adequately pay tribute to the man we all loved so much. In preparation for today, I spoke with some of my family members about their memories of Papa. It was very important to me that this dedication embody more than just my reflection, for he was not only a grandfather, but a dear father, son, uncle, brother, lover, and friend. Unfamiliar with loss and uncertain of my ability, I prayed to God that he might put the right words in my heart. The day after Papa's passing, I was excited to have an opportunity to select one item from his room. I looked through old comfy cardigans and dusty picture frames, and it was the faint glimmer of this gold-covered book that caught my attention. I initially believed it to be a Bible, but I cracked it open to find an inscription from Papa's mother, our Mami Kuka. Inside, it reads, "With love to my most precious children," dated February 12th, 1955. I slid off the gold cover to discover the book was Norman Vincent Peale's The Power of Positive Thinking, and to my delight, I learned that Papa had marked what I assumed to be the passages he found most inspiring. For those of you unfamiliar with this book, it teaches applied Christianity, a simple system of practical techniques for successful living. It wasn't until I got home the next day that I had the opportunity to read some of the passages Papa had highlighted. It was then that I discovered my prayer for guidance had been answered. And it was as I read through the underlined sentences, earmarked with rusty paper clips, that I sobbed in disbelief. Within the contents of this book, the stories my loved ones had recounted truly came alive. The day prior, while I listened to tales of a gracious husband, a fun-loving father, and faith-filled man, I wondered how it was that someone came to be all of these marvelous things seemingly without effort. The secret to Papa's success revealed itself as I began to absorb the underlined passages within the aged yellow pages of his book. Married 56 years, many memories of my grandparents' marriage read somewhat like a modern-day fairy tale. While some husbands have difficulty remembering annual wedding anniversaries, Papa took the time to bring Mima a fresh-cut flower in recognition of every Monaday. He often left her dated notes to find around the house, with sentiments like, "You make my day." And every evening, before his first after-work beverage, he toasted to his bride. "To you, 'cause you're so beautiful. To you, 'cause you're so good." The love he showed for his wife was matched only by that he had for his 7 children. His dedication to family was apparent in the thoughtful gestures he offered and the never-ending gift of his time. He made countless personal sacrifices to ensure they were not only well-fed and dressed, but also well-cultured. They played instruments, were active in sports, took up hobbies. Papa didn't just afford them these luxuries, but he enveloped himself in the experiences alongside his children, becoming their biggest fan. Who has the energy to remain present in every moment when there are so many with whom to share your affection? Perhaps Papa's method was revealed in page 37 of his book. The author speaks of soundly religious people with a constant source of energy. Papa learned that it is not hard work that drains energy, but emotional upheaval, from which he freed himself through prayer. Perhaps this is how he also garnered the energy to maintain a successful career. He dutifully gave the Air Force 28 years of service, during which he served in Korea and the Vietnam conflict. He and his family traveled all over the world to countries like Germany, Japan, the Philippine Islands, and Thailand, and wherever they were, he made sure they held tight to their sense of family and God. Through his example, his children learned the importance of a solid work ethic and positive attitude, as they saw him leave for work every day and return without complaint. In a chapter titled "Relax for Easy Power," Papa highlighted a few suggestions for taking the hard way out of your job. Among them, don't get the idea that you are Atlas carrying the world on your shoulders. Don't take yourself so seriously. Determine to like your work. Then it will become a pleasure, not a drudgery. Perhaps you do not need to change your job. Change yourself, and your work will seem different. Get a correct mental attitude, remembering that ease or difficulty in your work depends on how you think about it. Think it's hard, and you make it hard. Think it's easy, and it tends to become easy. Despite the professional challenges Papa may have faced, he left his work at work, and at the end of his day, he was rewarded in full. When his car pulled up in the driveway, he was greeted by the enthusiastic little faces of his children. One child took off his shoes, while another rubbed his head, and another grabbed him a beer. This was the life of a well-loved man. His children can fondly recall his energy being channeled into his love for music and dance, in particular, the jitterbug. It didn't matter if Mima was in the kitchen making dinner. If a song came on they could jitterbug to, he'd grab her at the drop of a hat, encouraged by their smiling, giggling children. In fact, Papa quite enjoyed being an entertainer. His ability to laugh at life and himself gifted so many friends and family with unforgettable memories. Some remember Papa's fishing trip mishaps, like catching a duck or getting stuck in a reservoir. Others remember his silly antics as the life of the party, but all share the same profound gratitude for this fearless jokester. His fearlessness also made him the best cheerleader anyone could ask for. Whether it was an annual Lujan family Super Bowl game, a softball tournament, or a soccer match, it wasn't fun unless Papa was on the sidelines with his ridiculously rhymed chants. "That's it, 22, way to run through. We've got 'em by the shoe, now show 'em what we can do." It didn't even matter if Papa knew the players' names. He was all smiles, all love for everyone. On page 79 of his book, Papa underlined, "The way to happiness is to keep your heart free from hate, your mind from worry. Live simply, expect little, give much. Fill your life with love. Scatter sunshine. Forget self. Think of others. Do as you would be done by." And that's exactly what Papa did. Scatter sunshine wherever he went. Ask one of his grandchildren and we will light up at the mention of poker with Papa for pennies, or lunch trips to Ellis Lake, or chess games. And we will always remember our Papa as the original MacGyver. He had an affinity for rigging mechanics, in particular, those that were not yet broken. If he had nails and some duct tape, Papa believed he could make it better. And while the results weren't always commendable, his enthusiasm for creativity was. Those who knew Papa can attest to the magnetic energy this man possessed. He was the dad envied by classmates, the husband girls hoped to find, and the God-fearing man men prayed they would become. His charisma, and perhaps his handsome dimpled smile, tickled pink the hearts of many a restaurant waitress and the cheeks of many companions. No one can deny that Papa spread joy wherever he was. I believe this is because he threw his heart over the bar. Papa highlighted page 111 of Positive Thinking, which tells the story of a trapeze artist and a student who was afraid to perform. The artist told the boy, "Throw your heart over the bar and your body will follow." Heart is the symbol of creative activity. Fire the heart with where you want to go, with what you want to be, and your entire personality will follow where your heart leads. To throw your heart over the bar means to throw your faith over your difficulty. Throw your affirmation over every barrier. Papa threw the spiritual essence of himself over the bar, and his material self followed. He most wanted to be remembered as a loyal servant, faithful to God, country, and his family. Loyal indeed. He was a man who taught his family according to his faith and strove to live life in Christ's image. His service to country would eventually impair life as he knew it, a victim to Agent Orange exposure and the resulting Parkinson's disease. And as the sole provider for his family of 9, he dedicated the core of his being to their happiness. Papa understood that the greatest gift he had to offer God was the way in which he chose to live his life. And this is how he created his own happiness. In his final days, our family maintained a round-the-clock vigil. We watched as the ability to recognize us drifted. His breathing became labored, and he lost complete use of his limbs. We reflected upon family vacations, kickball games, silly serenades, and breakfast waffles, fishing trips and his shoot-'em-up Western movies, happy birthday songs to baby Jesus at every Christmas, the authenticity of his smile, the cool touch of his shirtless belly in the summertime. We spent tearful hours by his bedside and littered the family and living room floors with our blanket-covered bodies as we snuck naps in between powerful group prayer and serenades of psalms. Although he was no longer responsive, we knew Papa could hear us. And at 5:02 p.m. on November 26th, Papa's poor body had endured enough. Upon his last shallow breath, he stiffened his legs and lifted his arm to the sky, ready at last to go home. And then our hearts broke. Papa, there are so many stories we haven't heard you tell. So many weddings still left to dance at, birthdays left to celebrate, grand and great-grandchildren to meet. But even if we were not, Papa was always prepared for death. My grandfather was a man whose heart had always belonged to our Lord, and he took faith in knowing what God had waiting for him. There is no better prescription for the heartache of our loss than the knowledge that he is reaping the rewards of his unwavering faith in heaven. Folded between the pages of Papa's gold-covered book, I also found a list of scriptures he loved. Among them was this: 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 9. But just as it is written, things which eye has not seen and ear has not heard, and which have not yet entered the heart of man, all that God has prepared for those who love him. The opportunity to reflect on another person's story is such a great reminder that it's not just experiences of struggle and overcoming that deserve our time and attention, and that in fact, celebrating beautiful expressions of our love for one another can also be healing. If I'm being honest, I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to continue to amplify this knowing. For now, I suppose this podcast will do. If you'd be interested in coming on the pod to share your story and being open to the wisdom that Spirit has for you on the other side of it, I'd love to connect. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, and share it with a friend. And as always, thank you so much for being here.